I would say that the vast majority of long videos, so pretty much anything over a minute, the vast majority of all of our long videos, we also make a short version. And that's so that you can drag people in, and the people who are most interested will then move to your long video and they really want to watch the whole thing.
Hi, folks. It's me, Austin Black, your host of the In Focus podcast. Welcome to episode number 4. My goal in this podcast is to help you establish a clear vision and strategy for marketing and branding your agriculture business through video. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is a 7-episode season. We are on episode number 4 today, discussing the 7 steps that we talk about in our video strategy workshop. Too many times I see companies that do not have a clear plan, do not have a clear set of expectations for their video production. And the end result is poor performance of the campaign and ultimately a waste of their time and money on the production. So through this podcast, my goal is to help you create a plan that is easy to follow and leads to your success. My guest today is Natalie McFarland with BackroadProductions in Oregon. She is a nationally renowned video producer in the agriculture and Western industries. And folks, I tell you, this episode is loaded with some good content as we talk about determining the shelf life of your video, how long it should be and how long it should last. Folks, today you're going to learn so much about why when it comes down to producing your campaign and determining how long it's supposed to last, it does all just depend on the situation. That's going to be our key phrase in this episode, as we're going to look at several factors that determine how long your campaign should last, how long your videos themselves should be, and why that variation is so important. We're going to talk about the difference between marketing and branding videos and how sometimes a video needs to be viral and just work right away and not last very long. Other times, that video needs to have a longer shelf life and be around for 2 or 3 years. We're also going to talk about elements that you can incorporate into your campaign that make that a timeless video that never really wears out. And finally, we're going to discuss why it's important to hire someone who knows how to walk you through a strategy and determining what that campaign shelf life should look like. So folks, without further ado, here's my interview with Natalie McFarland. All right, folks, we're here on the In Focus podcast. I've got my good friend Natalie McFarland with me, remotely with me, as she is not driving her car, but she is visiting us on the road today. Natalie McFarland is the founder and creator of BackroadProductions. What started as just photography quickly grew into a digital marketing solutions company for other companies within the agriculture industry, providing videography, photography, website design and management, social media, and graphic design services. Jack of all trades right there. Natalie has a passion for the Western way of life, and they have a passion for the Western lifestyle, serving individuals and companies by promoting the heritage and tradition, using powerful imagery, online digital marketing, and social media services. Natalie, you guys cover everything Western, everything agriculture, and everything digital. So I'm so glad to have you on today. Welcome to the In Focus podcast.
Hey, thank you. That's a pretty darn good interview. I think I need that a few times. I'm going to have you do it from now on.
Well, Natalie, why don't you start off by telling folks about yourself and BackroadProductions and what you guys are doing out there in Oregon?
Sure. So we're based in southwestern Oregon, but we travel really all over the world, majority the Western U.S., but we've been kind of everywhere. We, like you were saying before, sort of started in the photo side and then kind of expanded from there. And we work with people from, big cattle ranches to real estate brokers to, like Montana silversmiths and brands like those and events and kind of everything in between to really promote the Western lifestyle through the different facets. All in the digital world. We've got a little team behind us, and they're probably a group of happens to be all women, some of the coolest women I know. But we've had the good fortune of working with some really, really talented people here on the team. And so we're pretty excited just to do what we do and promote this lifestyle.
Now you're kind of like me. You're young in this industry, but you have attained a lot of success. And from what I have seen in just a few short days of knowing you, McFarland Productions is very, very well known in the Western industry. How long have you guys been involved in marketing, and what do you attribute your success to?
Sure. Well, as far as the photo side, it's hard to say when you really got started. I think every photographer sort of grew up with the camera in their hand, right? I think my parents spent far too much money developing those little disposable cameras when I was a kid because I couldn't help but push the shutter button. It kind of really, I would say we started doing it, or I started doing it as a side job in college, and just kind of paid my way through college doing what we do is, it's just some side money outside of all the other things that you have to do during college. And
Right.
then officially started the business in 2014. And since then, it's been developed since then. So officially, just about 6 years, unofficially more like 12. So
Awesome. Well, as we talked today about um, determining that length of your campaign, and we're going to talk about marketing in general, but also specifically video marketing and determining the length of your particular video you're going to use. Looking at that topic, how important is determining the length of your campaign when it comes to marketing?
Man, it's completely dependent on what you're promoting. Are we talking about brand awareness type of video work where we're really trying to get a population or your target demographic to know who you even are, or are you a more established company and really what you're doing is promoting a specific product that's coming out, or an event, or anything else in between? So, the specifics of each of those campaigns is really different depending on who you are, what you're promoting, and really what you're wanting to achieve with that.
So would you say that your campaign length and your video length is paramount into achieving the desired success, or does it make a difference if it's 30 seconds or 3 minutes, regardless of the video?
It definitely makes a difference, especially where we're promoting it to. If we're talking about social media, so on the social media side, if the kind of crown achievement is to get as many people as possible to watch past 8 seconds. 8 seconds seems to be this magic fold in the social media world that if you can get them past 8 seconds, they're probably going to watch the majority of your video. And depending on what you're doing, if it's a brand type video, you can't tell your story in 30 seconds. There's just not enough time to really get in the depths of what you're doing for a brand type video. But if we're doing like a more of a commercial, more of an ad, um, you know, one we did recently was for a particular product line that Montana Silversmiths did, and so that one is actually 20 seconds or less. So usually, like a product focused thing can be a pretty short thing. I always say that you should have a short version of any video that you're going to make, because social media just performs better on those short ones. It just seems to reach people better. It performs better. People engage with it more. So those are kind of generalities, but it's all dependent on what it is that you're promoting, to really, and like how in depth do they need to know you and what you're doing or your product.
So I'll kind of present you a two-part question here. The first part of it being, if we're looking at one particular video, you just mentioned, it's always good to have a shorter version of whatever video you produce. And I'm going to speak on your behalf probably in saying that that's so you can use it on a variety of platforms and a variety of audiences. But as you're looking at that one particular video, um, I've heard some people say that they're going to produce the video to tell the story. So if that means you can tell the story in 30 seconds, or if you can do it in 3 minutes, either way works. In one particular video, what is your mentality on time frame versus telling that full story the way it needs to be told?
Yeah, so I'll go with a specific example that we've done here recently. So Montana Silversmiths builds the national finals world championship buckles, and so we wanted to tell the story of how those buckles are made, particularly that all-around buckle. You know, it's a true gold buckle. It's
Right.
handcrafted, all those things. And we did sort of two versions of that. We did one that was sort of a 30-second TV ready, use on social media, bring people in, sort of teaser capture type video. And that video was followed then by actually a 6-minute video that told the whole process effectively from the time that buckle starts all the way through the end, and the story of the people that actually make those buckles, because
Mm.
there's probably roughly 10 people or so that work physically hand do different pieces of each one of
Wow.
those buckles. You know, there's no way for us to tell that story, you know, of the engraver, of the jewel setter, of, you know, somebody that puts the border on, the person who solders the back on, the person who puts the stamp on, the person who lays out all the pieces. You know, there's no way to tell that full detail and the real process of the story in 30 seconds. But we can make something that'll draw you in 30 seconds. So that one had two different versions of that video, and it really utilizing that small video, the short video, to promote the large video really had a really good um, engagement from the audience,
Hmm.
and the audience seemed to really respond to that. And so I would say that the vast majority of long videos, so anything over, pretty much anything over a minute, the vast majority of all of our long videos, we also make a short version. And that's so that you can drag people in, and the people who are most interested will then move to your long video, and they really want to watch the whole thing
Hmm.
because they're there because you drug them in with this sort of teaser, a little taste. It's just like a movie trailer. You know,
Right.
you think about any big blockbuster movie, you know, in order to get you there, they give you a short little taste of it. And so it's kind of the same sort of concept there, is trying to promote those longer videos using the short ones. So and then also, you know, in that particular case, as far as promotion timelines, they decided to release that video. The short version of the video was released a couple of weeks before the national finals rodeo last year on social media, and then it was also used on television and on the jumbotron there in the Thomas and Mack and things like
Hmm.
that. And then the long version they released round one. So they
Okay.
utilized that video throughout the duration of the national finals rodeo. So for 10 days, it was being promoted on social media in that case. But and then they also used it during their gold buckle ceremony, 9 rounds. So the 10th round, the buckle ceremony is in the Thomas and Mack, but
Hmm.
the other 9 rounds, they have an event where they do an awards ceremony. And so they played that long version just before that televised buckle ceremony each night. So in that case, that campaign was pretty extensive.
Hmm.
But you know, those concepts are easily applied to kind of any video, but the duration and time length, again, is all just dependent on what it is your goal. You know, what story are we getting across, what product are we promoting, what business are we promoting, and what is the goal from that. Really makes a difference for that.
So that leads perfectly into my second part of that question. As you're looking at the overall marketing campaign, so we'll kind of use that as an example, or even if you have an example that includes 3, 4, 5, 6 different videos. Campaigns are going to vary in time from a social media blitz to a brand video that's supposed to last 2 years. So as you're looking at even the length of that campaign in itself, and not only the number of videos you're going to use, but the length of those videos, how you're breaking that up and everything. What is the kind of the rule of thumb, the guideline of making an extensive campaign like that? Can you have something too short or too long whenever you're determining that campaign length in itself?
I think you know what you're saying is 100% right. It's really dependent on what you're doing. Like a brand video, like you're saying, you should be able to run that for a couple of years without a problem, because really your goal is brand awareness, and so you need sort of this trickle out effect of that content to reach more people over time. So as they're discovering you, but if you're needing something um, like let's say you're releasing a product in your 2020 line and the product drops on January 1st. You might promote that particular product drop for, really heavy, like really in the middle of the campaign. You might promote it in a series for a month or so, and then sort of have a trickle effect where, you might re-promote that video later on, but your main focus is right as the product opens. And so, yeah, I think that each thing that you're promoting kind of speaks to itself. Events, I would say that especially if you're going to be a large event where your audience is not local, where you're getting a lot of out of town type traffic at your event, that kind of a thing, that could be a year in advance,
Mm-hmm.
that you start promoting that event. But if it's something pretty local, you don't really want to, I would say that you would absolutely want to start 90 days ahead of time to promote that event. So it's dependent on your demographic. It's dependent on
Mm-hmm.
your target audience. I think you have to know who you're marketing to. We do this all the time, with each one of our clients when we're doing branding and that sort of thing, and we do it ourselves. And we went so far as to name our ideal client.
Yep.
So our ideal client has a name, they have a profession. I know what coffee they drink. They probably stop at Dutch Bros. They're probably buying Justin Boots and Wranglers. We know them on almost like a best friend level.
Yeah.
So I think any campaign, whether it's video, photo, social media stuff, any campaign you're going to do, graphics, you just have to know who you're selling to,
Mm-hmm.
and how. If I'm that ideal client, if I'm Joe, right? How long do I need to know about this thing before I take the action that you're hoping
Yeah.
I take on whatever the video is, either attending an event or buying something or what have you.
So as you're creating these campaigns, are you doing any consulting and strategizing with the client to determine the different elements of your timeline and your video length and everything, or are you just kind of following the direction they give you and what they want to do?
Definitely consulting. I don't think unless you're a videographer, you've done this enough times to know, exactly to really take the full concept to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of talking to people about, who is your ideal audience? What are you trying to achieve? And then doing some pre-planning. In the ranching world and things, you can't always make everything go exactly how you had hoped. So it's all dependent on livestock and things like that
Right.
too, especially events. I can't control how many people showed up to the event that I'm filming.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to come up with the concepts and the ideas, and typically the 3 to 4 most important things you want to communicate in your video. We really want to get down to what is the most important thing you want to come out of this video and a person to remember. And so then we just base our entire work, the timeline layout, everything
Mm-hmm.
based on, what is our goal? What do we actually want to achieve from this video?
So as you're in those discussions with those clients and you're providing consulting in regards to the campaign and the details of what videos you're going to run, what their purpose is, how long they're going to be, and everything, what specific elements are you considering to make those decisions? What matters the most to you to determine how many videos, what kind of videos, how long they need to be? What's your guideline for making those decisions?
I think that all marketing starts with the ideal client. So really understanding who they're marketing to is always my number one concern. I want to understand your audience, because video, and then the subsequent music and everything that we use underneath it, it can completely change the way that the message is communicated, and the feel of whatever brand or whatever product it is that we're promoting. So
Mm-hmm.
you're really understanding who are you trying to reach and who is actually buying or participating in whatever it is that you're working on. Secondly, the time length is dependent typically on where they're planning on promoting it. So is it social media? Is it television? Is it their website? Is it, somewhere else? Is it in a trade show booth, which is an entirely
Right.
different game because you can't hear anything, so everything is got to be cut pretty much.
Yep.
But I just finished one of those. Where are you doing this thing?
Hmm.
And then, also, what is your goal? Is your goal for somebody to understand your company's why? Why do you do what you do? Why does McFarland Productions exist? And it's our passion for the Western industry and promoting that. And there's no way for us to say everything we need to say in a brand style video in 30 seconds. Our
Right.
company is much more complex than that. Any company is.
Yeah.
But a 3 to 4 minute brand video is typical, but something on a product, if it's a specific, um, you know, cuff or bracelet or ring or something like that from Montana Silversmiths, 30 seconds might be enough.
Hmm.
It's just really dependent on your goals, your ideal client, and where you're promoting it really makes a difference.
So with that same concept, then how does the campaign dictate what kind of video you're going to produce, whether it is, promotional, educational, informative, engaging, brand related? How are you getting specific in, okay, we want this to just be on social media or just be on a website or just be in the trade show booth? Walk me down that process as well.
Yeah. So if it's gonna be if it's gonna be something on social media, for example, it typically has to be something that's immediately engaging,
Hmm.
because you want people to watch to the end, get past that 8-second mark. Um, if it's something in a trade show booth, you want it for somebody who maybe is waiting for you to be able to chat with you because you're talking with other customers, and you want that to be very informative and a good way for a person to get to know you and your company before they even get to talk to you. Or maybe there's frequently people who go to trade shows who never actually talk to the person in the booth. So
Right.
you want them to be able to come away from your booth knowing something about you. So the presentation of each one, each style of video is really different. Or if it's an event, are we talking about um, I don't know, a bull riding, or are we talking about a bull sale? Those are
Hmm.
two very different feels, and two very different demographics that you're speaking to. So usually a bull riding is, usually the hype music. It's something more fun, it's more engaging, it's exciting. You want the crowd to be sort of amped.
Hmm.
On like an Angus bull sale, you're gonna be more informative because people are talking about purchasing animals or shares of animals or sticks, and they're trying to improve their own businesses based on the genetics that you're selling. And so it's just a very different tone, speak, feel, overall theme of the video depending on what it is you're doing with that video.
Yeah. Folks, if you're interested in getting your own custom built outline for your business for video strategy, then sign up today for our video strategy workshop. We're going to sit down with you one-on-one, have a meeting with your whole marketing team, and discuss your current business structure, your marketing efforts, what new campaign goals you have, and determine your marketing budget. After the workshop, then you're going to get a customized, well-designed, and very thoroughly thought out strategy outline that guides you through exactly what kind of video to use, where to use it, when to use it, how to use it to make sure that you have a successful campaign. For more information or to book your private one-on-one session, visit backroad-productions.com/workshop. So to dig in, we'll go a third layer here then. Whenever you are looking at an entire campaign, um, obviously you're not going to run a campaign for eternity. I mean, there's a specific timeline that you're going to even on a brand film, after so many years, you need to reshoot your brand film. If you got a new product line coming out, if you have a new event coming out. So even if, I guess we're going to go with a little longer term campaign in this concept, and how do you determine when that campaign has gone long enough, when it's not working anymore, when the efficacy is kind of worn off, and it's time to reshoot or replan or just produce the same idea but in a new video with new footage? What does that time frame look like when you make that call of, okay, this has run its course, it's time to redo stuff?
Yeah. So in the let's just use a brand video, just because that's one of the longer term things that's supposed to last you a little bit longer there. Typically, people are planning on 2 years, for a brand video. They're Your company is always ever changing. Every company goes through changes and twists and turns and things. But typically, when you're creating concepts for a brand video, you want it to outlast a couple of years. So we need to really understand who you are as a company before we can make one of those, because it's going to last you a while.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the campaign goes, you know, as you're promoting those different like brand videos and things, you can tell when your engagement completely drops or when it stops fitting who you are as a company, or it just no longer really represents who you are because of the time duration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with a product line too. Product lines have a much shorter time span. Typically, a season. Most products are seasonal, especially if we're talking about fashion in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a winter related fashion item, you're only going to promote that for maybe a month leading up to that season, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when things typically release. And then, for a couple of months into that season is pretty typical. So usually 2 to 3 months on a seasonal type product is pretty normal. But you'll know, you can kind of know when your engagement drops and it's no longer applicable and it starts to get stale.
Mm-hmm.
You need to just work on the next thing. And I think that's true of any company in any industry, really, is that nothing will last you 20 years. If you're using
Right.
the same video 20 years later, number one, the video footage probably doesn't look great compared to,
Right.
that day, but also it probably doesn't fit you anymore. Because all of us are always changing, always improving, always moving forward.
And it's interesting that you bring up that concept, because as soon as you said that, my thought or my mind goes back to some of those commercials from the 80s and 90s that you just they were made a long time ago. There was no questioning the fact that they were produced not in high def, not with the best equipment, not even with the best actors, but we still love to watch them, and we
There
still
are a few.
we quote them. It's just they're classic commercials. So I'm curious, with that concept in mind, how can a company, we're kind of going on a tangent here, how can they produce something like that where 20 years from now, yeah, it's old, it doesn't look the best, but we still remember it?
Yeah, yeah. I think, eh, I think everybody strives to have one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants the concept, the idea that everybody's going to remember for the next 30 years. Sam Elliott's beef commercial, the
Yep.
Paul Harvey Dodge commercial. There's specific ones that people really remember and really love. And I think that as you're cooking up concepts and you're trying to find the thing that fits the company the most, it comes down to the company's branding too. Having a campaign that's going to outlast and outlive everything is really going to be the thing that keeps you going on that same concept. and
Mm-hmm.
and it's the thing that makes commercials last a long time, and it doesn't get outdated, right? As far as the footage and things might, but the concept doesn't get outdated.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott saying the million ways you can cook beef in the true Sam Elliott style.
Right.
That's never going to get old. Everybody's going to still cook meatloaf. Beef
Yep.
in general is still going to be around. So, creating a brand concept, a brand campaign that can outlast, is really kind of step one in those
Mm-hmm.
processes to create those iconic pieces that last forever. So, I think, like with the Dodge commercial, the Paul Harvey Dodge
Mm-hmm.
commercial, they've established themselves as, this farming, ranching work rig, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so there people who buy pickups. I'm sitting in one right now. Um, buy the
Sponsored
Dodge
content.
pickup. Yeah, not sponsored. I wish I was sponsored by Dodge. But you know, you expect it to be able to work. You expect it to be able to hold up to the ranch. I
Mm-hmm.
expect to be able to, you know, throw hay in the back, move my dogs, do all this, you know, pull all the kinds of trailers. I know what I'm buying because they've established their brand within that space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many different campaigns out there that have been so successful, like those two, that they've just really established a timeless concept within their company. And it's not just true of their video content, it's true of everything that they
Mm-hmm.
promote. And it's a repetitive, easy, timeless type of concept or tagline, or um, you know, a way of promoting your particular company that really kind of says who you are.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
well, everybody strives to get that brand campaign, and it's the elusive. I think everybody
Right.
looks for it.
So on the flip side of that, then, and getting more back to your personal experience, what are the biggest mistakes that you have seen a brand do when it comes to, you know, publishing a campaign or a video that's too short or too long, and they missed the ball? What have you experienced in that regard?
Boy, I think typically the mistake, especially in length of film, is always too long. I think short videos have a tendency to have more general success, but the longer you get, the more difficult it is to keep somebody's attention for that long.
Mm-hmm.
So being concise and clear with your audio, or if you don't have audio, any of the visuals, you need it to be very clear what it is you're trying to communicate right away. And um, if you stray from that, or you ramble too much, like I'm probably doing in this podcast, but if you stray from trying to be clear and concise and getting your point across, people will lose interest and
Mm-hmm.
not remember the video at all, much less what it was that you were talking about. So I think, you know, the number one mistake is not being clear, not being prepared, not knowing the reason why you're doing it, having a direct path before you make that video.
Mm-hmm. Have you experienced any guidelines or parameters about length of video compared to attention span? We talked about the 8-second rule, and I know I've heard that, you know, in Facebook you got 3 seconds to capture that attention. What is, have you seen any set, we'll just say time length or whatever you want to call it, where after a certain point it becomes very, very difficult to capture or to keep that attention span?
Um, yeah, I think it again is dependent on where you're utilizing that content to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very different in a TV situation versus a social media situation or on your website. I think everyone is a little bit different. And there are general rules of thumb, like that, you know, capture in 3 seconds, keep them at 8 seconds. Maybe you'll make it to the end on social media. You know, TV commercials, people get irritated if they're longer than like a minute's a real long TV
Yeah.
commercial. It feels like an eternity. You know, 30 seconds is much more you know, bite sized. People can
Mm-hmm.
grasp the concept much quicker and easier, and not feel irritated by
Right.
that commercial as much, unless you have DVR. Don't do that. Watch my commercials. No, I think it's really just dependent on where you're using it and what you're communicating. Because, you know, if I'm on your website and I'm on your about page and I'm trying to get a feel for your company,
Mm-hmm.
30 seconds probably isn't going to be enough. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 2 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes or so is more the amount of time I need to get to know your brand, you know, and feel like I've created, even though I haven't necessarily talked to that company, that you can create some amount of trust or understanding about what that brand is like and what it might be like to work with that company or
Mm-hmm.
buy from that company. So messaging and target audience and placement all sort of again
Right.
determine those same things.
Well, as we wrap up, any final thoughts or comments, advice that you have for companies who, maybe they're newer to video, or they've done video in the past and just haven't had the best of luck in regards to this time frame concept. Any other final thoughts you want to leave with people?
Yeah, I think that the general consensus as of right now, which it all changes all the time, but as of right now, video content is the best performing content out there. People are engaging the most with it. They utilize it the most. They watch the most of it. They consume the most of it. And it's the quickest way for a person to gain information. So first of all, video is right now. Video is sort of
Hmm.
where it's at as far as the ad side, reaching your audience goes. But I think that the biggest thing to do when you are coming up with a video concept is not to do it in any kind of hastily fashion. you know,
Yep.
you want to take time to develop the concept, really understand what your goals are, understand who you're reaching, and work with somebody who really understands you as an industry. Because just because I have a camera in my hand doesn't mean I can accurately, do a commercial for, I don't know, cave diving or something. Like, it's not something that I know anything about. Is it cool? Awesome.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm not, I couldn't make a surfer film and pretend to know what I was making.
Hmm.
So being a videographer, cinematographer, or, any kind of a video creator, picking a video creator that understands you, understands your concepts, also gets your target audience and can really connect with that audience will only help you. You and I both, um, kind of go in this niche market
Hmm.
because we get it.
Right.
We're one of you. So, um, and I think it only, number one, I like my work a lot more because I get to work on things that I love and I'm passionate about. But number two, I think it also makes the video content that we create much more effective in the long
Hmm.
run. So whether you're a agriculture business or you're in the tennis shoe industry, you should really pick somebody who really understands, is passionate about that industry, and lives it,
Yeah.
because that person is going to be the best person to help you create that content.
Awesome. That is
So
some wonderful, wonderful information. Natalie, thanks so much for joining us today and for giving us your insight. I think it's very valuable and information that we can really put to good use as we develop our strategies. So thanks for being here today.
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Boy, there was a lot of great information in that episode. Thank you so much to Natalie McFarland for sharing her insight and her wisdom into how to determine the shelf life of your video campaign. Folks, I hope that you learned why it really does all depend. Why that's the answer to almost every situation, and why that makes strategy and planning so important, because every video is different, every campaign is different, and it's important to know what your goals are to determine how that campaign should be designed. Folks, for more information about Natalie McFarland and her work, her business, how you can get in touch with her, be sure and check out the show notes at backroad-productions.com/podcast. Folks, thanks for tuning in to episode number 4. We'll see you next week on the In Focus podcast.